Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order.
Quick handshake.
So if you can please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance and salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico and see a symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. We'll start to sing the pledge again.
It's hard to say that.
Okay, moving on to the next item of the agenda, approval of work session agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the work session agenda as prepared.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. County reports.
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, my report for August 7th, August 2nd to August 15th. Item number one, status remains the same. We still have 6 vacancies and still interviewing applicants. Training report, starting the Galindo's monthly report. 2 newly hired officers continue with their basic training. And also, last Friday we conducted an Narcan training for the inmates. Item number 3, the status remains the same. Item number 4, community report. I attended the Two Costa Advisory Board meeting yesterday. Also, I attended the Judicial Council meeting at the Grant County Courthouse. On August 7th, I attended the Two Casa. This meeting was to prepare for the Two Casa Recovery Celebration that's going to be held in September at the Bend Altamirano Sports Complex. I believe it's going to be September 7th. And I and Sergeant Galindo will be conducting the community Narcan training all day at the event. Item number 5, recognition awards program. Lieutenant Michael Bonifant has been recognized as Employee of the Month for August. Lieutenant Bonifant has continually responded to the needs of the facility because of his hard work and dedication to the Grant County Detention Center. Lieutenant Bonifant continues to set a positive example for the corrections officers under his supervision. And the administration thanks Lieutenant Bonifant for his service. Item number 6, monthly agency total arrests for August 2nd to August 14th. Silver City Police Department 37, Grant County Sheriff Department 18, New Mexico State Police 4, Bear Police 5, Santa Clara 1, Probation and Parole 1, GCDC, which are the walk-ins, is 3. On August 14, 2019, there were 60 inmates awaiting court proceedings. 18 were sent to the Grant County Detention Center, 2 awaiting prison, and 7 awaiting rehab, and 1 being held for Hidalgo County, 1 pending transfer out of state, and 1 pending transfer into federal custody. Item number 7 is your graphs that I submitted. The head count for August 14th was 90. The average daily population for August 2nd to August 14th was 101. Special management report indicates on special management for August 14th there were 4 males. And the head count for today is 99. We've been spiking. We've been going, a couple of weeks ago we went down to 88. Then we back up, went up to 102, went up to 103. So now we're back where we're at right now. So at 99, so we're staying pretty close to capacity. That's my report, sir.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for me?
No.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So real quick, so the county wildfire protection plan is underway. We're going to have our first core meeting on September 12th at the conference center. Contractor is SWCA engineering firm, so I'm looking forward to that, to get that kicked off and start the plan, digging into the plan and seeing, getting the updates from all the core team, which is State Land Office, Forest Service, State Forestry, all the volunteers. I know I'm missing some, but we're going to have a big core team meeting on September 12th. You're welcome to come. You're invited, and you're welcome to come if you want. Lower Members, real quick, is having a, remember the September 11th, they're having hot dog and hamburgers that they do every year. They want me to bring this to you and invite you. It's from 9 from 11 to whenever they finish, and that's it. The Sherman Station, 2168 Highway 61, and that's September 11th, 2019. At this point, we've had a lot of rain, but it's starting to dry up now. It's real hot, so I just want to encourage people to make sure that they, heed the dry fuels, because it can get away from them pretty quick no matter what. We don't have any fire restrictions right now in place, but just want to get that out to the people. Baton Park, we had a minor incident, or I say we had an accident this weekend. They tore the gate down. They hit the gate and tore it off with a hinge. Again, that's why we don't allow people to go up and park up there. The guys were able to work on it yesterday and get it back up and get it fixed. Hopefully just no way to police that, and making sure we tell people that they're not allowed to go up there and park, but people do anyway. So we had an accident there yesterday, and so there was a police report filed, and so we're going to go from there. If you have any questions about that later on, you could ask me about it. Airport fueling, the Forest Service starting to die down a little bit with our fueling with fire season kind of winding down. We're staying busy. Going to have a construction meeting tomorrow with staff and everybody to see where we go from there, and moving forward with that. This building, the roof is done. We did have the owners here yesterday to inspect it. The owner of the company, they came and inspected it. CID will inspect it today, and then the manufacturer will be here to inspect it, and that's when we'll get the warranty settled in, and it's a 20-year warranty, so all of those inspections will take place before, it's actually 100% complete. We did sign the contract for the handicap at Baton Park as well. That's on that west side. That I think there's going to be 4 parking spaces there. That has been signed, and so they're going to get started on that. We did have some issues at the courthouse with dog waste, with people, having their dogs out there around. So we did put a dog waste station up there. And that's just trying to educate the people so they just clean up after themselves. Unless you have any questions, that's all I have.
Any questions?
Yeah, tell us, sorry. What gate was that got busted down?
That is the east. The east side. That's the gate that they used to go inside. That's by the facility, but that's by the Baton building.
Okay, that's
It's
right.
supposed to be locked all the time, and somehow it was left open, and they hit it with a vehicle.
Okay.
So, but it's been fixed and it's back up now. It just needs to be painted and.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. So I'll start with Whiskey Creek Volunteer Fire Department addition. We're getting closer to completion. They're doing the interior work, so I'll finish work on the inside of that. Rosedale Road Colonias project has been moving on schedule. They should be finished with all of the construction on Rosedale Road by the end of the month, so we can close that out. Randy mentioned the terminal. We do have a meeting tomorrow. It's the terminal renovations, and part of that meeting is we need to work through the temporary terminal needs so that the advanced air can operate while we're doing construction there. So that's what we're going to be finalizing. We didn't want to order a building until we knew that we had a contractor in place and we knew that we had the grant. So there was a lot of working parts on that. So we'll get the temporary building coming in and start scheduling out the notice to proceed. So Tyrone ADA, you'll be, I think that's an item on the agenda, is for the bid award. As soon as we've got that bid award and we work through that, we will get the notice to proceed on that one. Also, that's another Colonias funded project. The NMDOT call for projects, I haven't seen anything official, but was told that the North Hurley Road was on the list of recommended projects. So hopefully we will see a grant agreement with NMDOT so we can finish out the construction on North Hurley that we have waiting for the design there. That was one of the major ones that we put on that call for projects. So
And I was going to do that during my county report, but just to let you know, got a call yesterday afternoon from governor's office, and
It was approved. We have, I think it's a little over $1 million for that project. We do have a match for, I think, 77,000. I guess going through that was through the local transportation and infrastructure fund, that 55 million that Governor Grisham has been adamant about and talking about when she started her campaign there. So I was told that we are receiving over $1 million on that. So
Yeah, our request for the total cost of the project was $1,500,000, with our match being $77,700 roughly. So.
my understanding also, I guess, Department of Transportation will be doing a news release sometime today on that.
Okay.
So, and I know that it's been much needed for residents in North Hurley for drainage and road construction there. So that was great news.
Great news. Yep. And then the last thing on my report is I do plan to send in notice of intents. I'm working on those with the contractor to the Water Trust Board. The notice of intent is saying that we intend to apply to Water Trust Board, and the two projects that I want to send in notice of intents for is Bandoni and Fleming Tank. Those are both flood control projects. Bandoni were complete on the preliminary engineering report, and Fleming Tank is current, but I've got enough information that the contractor can give me the OPCC, the opinion of probable construction costs, so we can apply for the funds. It's just a notice of intent, but hopefully we can make a project stick with the Water Trust Board this time. I tried every year, just haven't been able to. I've tried with North Hurley on the drainage, and they just haven't thought that fit the Water Trust Board's requirements. So, if there's any questions, I stand for questions. Otherwise, that's the end of my report.
I have one, not about anything you mentioned, but about recent news where I saw that Hurley was possibly looking at having to take out a loan for the regional, for its part of the regional water project. And you may not be prepared to answer this, so we could talk about it later. But I didn't really understand what led to that.
I'm kind of looking to Charlotte.
Sure.
If she has a little
So
bit more
I'm happy to wait. I know I'm just springing that on you.
I think Priscilla could probably answer that question for us.
Okay.
I know there was a lot of pieces of funding that went into that, and I'm not aware of what all they had to put together to fund that in its entirety. So
Okay.
I could ask her and get that information.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
You stole my thunder. I was just going to tell you about the DOT award, so that was it. It's okay.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think that's been a long time coming, so it's pretty good. Any other county reports? That's it. Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda's purpose and public input. The general purpose of the county work session is to inform the Grant County Board of Commissioners of agenda items that will be addressed at the next regular meeting, and for department heads and other elected officials to communicate with commissioners in regards to matters in their respective departments. In accordance with Grant County Resolution Number R-19-34, we welcome public input limited to agenda items only and will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Do we have anyone for public input? Okay.
Rowdy crowd.
Rowdy. So moving on to the next item, presentations. Gila Regional Medical Center reports. Ms. Tafiades.
Good morning. Hope everybody's enjoying these fall days. We're got a lot of things to look forward to this fall, and I hope that you mark your calendar for the trunk or treat that comes up every fall to celebrate Halloween for our children in this county. So as soon as I know that date for sure, I'll let you know so you can circle your calendar on that. I have quite a few exciting things to share with you. As you know, we have two new Board of Trustees. We're very excited about that. Joel Schramm being reelected, Cindy Moreno a nurse practitioner in our family practice. We're very excited about that. And of course, James Marshall, who comes to us with a wealth of knowledge and experience. So we're very excited to have him on our Board of Trustees. We have our executive committee members who are now Tony Trujillo, who is our chair. Dr. Wachuco remains our vice chair, and Jeannie Miller, who is our secretary, and that is our executive member of the Board of Trustees. I wanted to share with you something that we're doing quite differently now with our new members of our Board of Trustee members. We knew that there was going to be a learning curve for these new members, so what we have done is we have formalized an orientation for them. So as of last Friday, they have signed all of their paperwork to include their confidentiality agreement and their no-compete or no conflict of interest documentation. We have given them their orientation binder, which is about 4 inches thick, very healthy reading. And James Marshall wanted us to know that he reads every word, so we're going to hold him to that. We're going to give him a little quiz and see if he really did do that. And the orientation binder, or the binder that we give our board members, we increase that every year. We update it every year so there's good current information in that. They have also received their iPads so that they can have this for the Board of Trustee meetings with their passwords. And we're also going to be offering, starting this week, orientation sessions for them. The first one will be on finance, and I'm sure there are going to be several of these finance meetings because, as you know, it's very complicated. So this Wednesday at noon, Jeannie Miller will be meeting with Richard and the two new members to go over finance and that structure and what we're looking for. And it'll be a very big overview of that. And then Richard will start getting into the very finite detail about how our decisions are made. Besides the finance, we will include some of the topics which will be included are quality, safety, risk, compliance, medical staff services, human resources, and ancillary departments. Those will be just a few of the topics offered for them. Of course, you know, these are not mandatory because these are voluntary positions, but we wanted to make sure that these were offered to them to gain their, to get them up to decision-making capabilities. On our recruitment this past month, I just wanted to give you an update on Dr. Kelly, who's our family practice doctor. She has completed all of her applications, her pre-app applications, and that has gone through very well. She is only waiting for the New Mexico license, and then she will be ready to start. We interviewed a ear, nose, and throat doctor this past week who is very promising. Another surgical candidate who is coming out of Chicago, very, very experienced. Also, we interviewed this past week an acute care nurse practitioner, and this person would be someone assigned to our ICUs and also the floor to help the nurses and to be in communication with our medical director of ICU, who is Dr. Steiner. We also are interviewing tomorrow a pediatrician who is military-based right now, but is looking for something at the end of her tenure with the military, which will be June of next year. So we're trying to plan in advance. I don't know if many of you know this, but Dr. Corey is leaving our community, and that will cause a great vacancy for our pediatric population. And even though we have hired Dr. Worrell, who is a very, very experienced and good doctor, that when you look at cost schedules, it is too much for 1 or 2 physicians to take call all of those days. So we really need another one to backfill Dr. Corey and also to take call for our hospital patients. Besides that, on the recruitment, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some program expansions and some new programs that we have started. As of this week, we have started our tele-neuro program, and this is for our patients who have emergent situations, and that will be starting in the emergency department, but we are expanding that into the floor for stroke patients. So this is very exciting. We are working with the same company to start telepsych, and this will start in our emergency department, but will filter into the inpatient units also. Cardiology is expanding. Dr. Ratliff has started a new procedure that he is doing, so we're very excited about that. And Dr. Rosser is with his Heartburn Center. We are expanding that, and he will be doing a lot of expansion with this program itself. Richard is working with the company to do some investment on some very specialized equipment that can actually be used in the office setting, which will prevent any unnecessary hospitalization of patients. Family practice, I wanted to just touch base and give you a little update on Baird. We have finished the architectural design on that, and we're just waiting for the construction costs to come in before we start on that program. But I will keep you up to date as we progress with that. We're still looking for urology, and another program that we're very interested in is gerontology, and this is something that's greatly needed in our community and we don't have. So we're looking and exploring the capabilities of that program also. We are also looking, as you remember, and I don't think some of you were present during that time, but we were really looking at reinstating home health and hospice services, which I think are also needed in this community. I know that they were programs that Gila Regional had at one time, and at some point they dissolved those services, but it is really something I think has proven to be of great need in our community, and we want to reinstate that. So Richard and I are looking on the feasibility of it. We want to get the finances in line so that we can submit that to our board for approval on those expansions. And then, of course, our rural health clinic designation. Richard has been working very closely with the state to get that program ongoing. Just for our one clinic area, it should save us approximately $400,000 a year. And as we expand that, we're looking at how we can reinvest that into services for our community. So we have several construction and repair projects that we are involved in. One is in our pharmacy. We're having to redo one of our IV rooms per state code, and so we have already gotten the architectural submission on that. Richard is looking at that because not only is it a contract for the architect piece of it, but also on the construction. So he will give you some more information on that. We're still looking at our roof replacement in that section, and we'll give you an update. Richard will give you an update on where we are on that. And this, in addition to that, we're doing updates on our security system by putting in a program with badge readers for our behavioral health and for our OB department to prevent people coming in and out of those departments that should be highly secure. So we're also expanding our camera capabilities throughout the hospital and on the outside of our departments to make sure that we have constant surveillance of our hospital for safety. So on the community piece of it, I just want to let you know that we are scheduling public update on our current hospital status as we did last year. I'll let you know as we get closer to that date. Also, we are planning a strategic planning meeting with our Board of Trustees, and after that is complete, we'll be sharing that with the public. We are also looking at being involved in the Remembrance Community Health Fair, And we're very excited about that because now that we have a new CNO, she is getting many people involved in this. It is voluntary on our staff part, but they are very excited to be involved in community outreach. We are also looking and are involved in the state program for opiate abuse. And I will tell you that the Department of Justice is very cracking down a lot on this. They have visited our hospital, and all of our providers are in compliance with the program that the state has offered, and we'll be looking at doing even more in-servicing with our community doctors on this, because if we don't do this, the Department of Justice certainly will inform them of this. We also are doing another wage analysis on for our employees. As you know, we did a wage adjustment for the nursing staff, and we're looking at 2 other departments that have not been given a wage adjustment in many, many years, and we definitely need to provide that for them. And then we will be doing a employee safety and an employee engagement survey coming up this next month, but I will give you a more update on that so that you will know with the employees. They might be sharing that information with you, and we'd love to share some of those questions that we will be asking our employees so that you are aware of that. But this survey is not just a survey, it is a whole program. Because once we get those results will be shared with the employees, and the employees will be involved in addressing those issues and helping us in administration and guiding us into really where those areas are of improvement for those employees. So, do I have any questions? As you can see, it's been a very busy month for us.
Commissioner Brown?
It has, and again, I really appreciate you coming in and giving us these detailed updates. It's really helpful, and it's great to hear the programs you have for the future. I have a question that you may not be able to answer because it's I don't know how I would deal with it if I were in your shoes, but I've gotten now 3 emails with rumors of things going on at the hospital that are discouraging people from using the hospital. And I'm not even going to mention 2 of them because they're too inflammatory to mention. But one of them had to do with immigrants and a perception that the hospital has been, quote, taken over, end quote, by immigrants. And another perception that I blame on general misinformation in our media nationwide, that these immigrants have brought diseases to the hospital, and therefore people are afraid to go because of those diseases. I wonder if you could put to rest for us those rumors.
Certainly. On the immigration status, we have seen a tremendous decline in the number of patients who are visiting our emergency department or consequently being admitted. I think this has a lot to do with the detention centers providing health care, and which makes our services unnecessary. But as far as the diseases that are being brought, early on we saw a great deal of gastrointestinal issues, dehydration, malnourishment, and that you would totally expect from anybody that has crossed a desert. But healthcare in these countries are not what healthcare is here. So yes, we may see some things, but it mostly has to do with overcrowding. And so those things that other detention centers are seeing, such as in Houston, in El Paso, where the overcrowding is just unbelievable, in Florida, we have not seen that here at our facility. In fact, I walk through our halls and maybe I'll see an officer there once in a while, but nothing like it was several months ago in January and February. So yes, sometimes we see things that cause some alarm, but the thing about what our doctors in the emergency have done is they have been extremely proactive. So if anything in question has come about, they are isolated from everyone else because we don't want to take the chance on exposure. But I will tell you that it is just as frequent or just as likely for anyone in our community that is faced with underservice of health care. They don't have the means for health care. They don't have transportation to health care, to become subjected in their own community to certain diseases which the general population is not. So I think those are gross rumors that happen, and I think that we need to do more public education to reduce that fear. There are some people that think that we should not be dealing with these patients at all. And I can have an appreciation for that, but that is not what hospitals do. Hospitals take care of everyone that come in those doors. Number one, it's the law that we have to. Number two, that is a political thing that hospitals are not going to get into. I wish there was a different view of this, because those rumors get way out of control. So the more information that we can give our community on this, and I appreciate you bringing that up, Commissioner Brown, the more we get out, just like all education, it reduces rumors, it reduces fear. And that's what we need to be doing. So thank you so much for bringing that.
Well, thank you for that response.
And that other rumor that you don't feel comfortable mentioning, please come to me, please call me, and I will either validate or not.
All right, I appreciate that response,
Yes.
and it's my belief that what you referred to as potential opposition to what the hospital does with immigrants, I believe is a minority view in this community. I think there's strong support for treating all people at our hospital. So thank you.
Certainly. Any other questions? All right. Richard.
Commissioner Brown,
Richard reminded me that I might mention this fact, that it's a totally operational issue, but I will share this with you. We have had, as you know, we have a contract with a company called Innova, which is a company that provides our emergency physicians to our hospitals, also provides mid-levels to our hospital. And we have recently had a change of directorship from the medical standpoint. Dr. Koch is now our medical director, and he is just starting, and he's very, very positive, wants to help on all of our initiatives, extremely approachable. So we're very, very glad that he is with us, and I'll try to bring him as soon as I can.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is the report for June, which is the end of our fiscal year. You probably noticed from the report that June looks a little bit different, and so we reported a $4.2 million profit for June. But let me tell you what happened there. So as we got ready and as we are preparing for our auditors to arrive on site next week, we had made certain entries throughout the year that we made on several occasions on different months. And what we did was we reversed those entries so that we could make all the entries in June. It was primarily, one, for our record keeping, but two, to make the auditors, as they search for things that need to be corrected, it's all in 1 month now instead of spread out through the year. So if you take a look at year-to-date column, which is the one that we reported to the board, we are showing a profit of $299,000 for the end of our fiscal year. And I do want to let you know, as I've let our board know, that This particular year, I was more aggressive in my revenue accruals and a little less conservative in some other areas as it relates to contractual adjustments. I still think that they're, obviously I think they're defensible positions, but it's something that that's a little bit unique for this particular year. I know the $299 figure will change based on some subsequent events, but the extent of that I don't know today. We're still sorting out some issues. As you may know, we've had a change in our controller's position, and we've had a change in our business office director in the last 60 days. So, moving down to notes of interest, we did collect 32% of our charges in June. Looks like we've got 2 months. I still say 2 months don't make a trend, but it's going in the right direction. Our cash to net revenue, we're at 112%, which is, if you look back, we had 123% the previous month and 116. So we still have some items flowing through the financial statements that's depressing that number. Notes of interest, we had a Medicaid DISH audit for fiscal year 2016. The results of that audit showed we were underpaid right at $5 million. There is virtually no opportunity to recover that. The good news is we don't have to pay anything back, which some hospitals find themselves in the position of. We are continuing our balance sheet cleanup. And as I just stated, we have external auditors arriving next Monday. So all my assumptions and adjustments and accruals and recognition items will be tested next week. So it's going to be a great week. Ms. Taffy's already spoke a little bit about RHC status for our primary care practice. Of importance there is as we progress down this particular road, we also have additional practices we'll be converting. So once we get a little further down the road on our first practice, we'll start the process on the other practices as well. One thing of particular note and of importance this year is how we reflect our clinic practices on our Medicare cost report. So we've been working very hard to make sure that those items appear what we call above the line, meaning a reimbursable cost center versus a non-reimbursable cost center for Medicare cost report purposes. So there's a way in the past it's been handled okay, but not optimally by particular practices. So this year we're putting a lot of effort to make sure that we have the data reflected by clinic on our Medicare cost report. And that has a lot of implications to a lot of different programs that we have and are launching at the hospital. We did receive a fairly extensive and detailed analysis of GRMC converting to critical access status. We'll be sharing that report with the board by the end of this week for them to review pending our board meeting next week. It is as we expected. The additional impact to the hospital ranges anywhere from $4 to $6 million, which is fairly consistent with the prior 3 years that we looked at. So we've in total looked at the four previous fiscal years. So we feel pretty good. We've got a good number there. Again, the issue that we're having to address before we move into that particular payment status is the impact on the Medicare beneficiary. So we are well aware of the potential issues that reflects. And so I'm putting processes in place to address that, impact on the beneficiaries. Our days cash on hand at the end of last month was 25 days. Yesterday it was 26 days. So we're staying fairly steady. Our cash collections, as you noticed, in June we collected $4.4 million, about $230,000 more than we collected last year. But June was actually a little lower collection month than what we're used to seeing. All right, any questions for me?
Yes, County Manager.
Commissioner, I just have a clarifying question, because in your overview, those numbers jumped off the page at me, the month to date. So just clarify, you reversed all of the journal entries you made throughout the year and made them all in the month of June for audit purposes? Did I understand you correctly?
Yeah.
So that's why that looks so
Correct.
skewed. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question about one of the notes in your report. I don't think you mentioned it about the pharmacy charges. You mentioned that the effect has been an average decrease of $1.1 million per month.
Yeah, so if you take a look at our net revenue, the very top line on the first page, so our net revenue for June was $73 million versus this time last year was $97 million. That's with the last time I calculated, the effect of the decreased pharmacy charge to the patient was about $1.3 million per year. So we've been able to increase our net revenue with a $1.3 million reduction in charges for our pharmacies.
Okay, you just said what I thought you might have meant in the written report, 1.3 million per year.
Correct.
The report says 1.1 million per month, which would be 13 million a year.
Yeah, no.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's wrong. I was
That
shocked.
was an incorrect statement.
Okay, so an average decrease of,
Yeah.
maybe it meant to say $0.1 million per month.
No, I meant to give you an annual number. I just typed that in incorrectly.
I'm really relieved. Don't think I have anything else.
Commissioner Bowman, any questions?
Yeah, I'm probably going to show my ignorance, but back to Manager Webb's question. So you're showing a variance. I'm looking at that $12 million month-to-date figure. You're showing an extra $6 million of revenue.
Of net revenue.
Because of those. So how can we tell what the month of June would have been without those changes? What would June have looked like?
Before I did the adjustments to reverse the prior month's entries, we were slightly breaking even for the month of June. I believe in the month of May, and I'm just trying to recall from memory that, we were somewhere around 260, 270 year-to-date profit.
Okay.
So it's just a slight profit before the entries were made.
Okay, very good, thanks. Thanks for the detailed report. That I think that you guys have been busy, evidently, and that was a very detailed report. I sure appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Brown?
Yeah, sorry, Richard. One more item. I'd forgotten to ask you the reasons for the Medicaid dish underpayment of maybe $5 million.
That's a good question, and I don't know if I really want to answer it in open session. But people that are highly skilled are always needed in order to present data initially. So, to make a long story short, we have some very highly skilled people that are excellent at extracting data out of our information system. We did not have that capability in the year that the initial report was filed. Okay?
Sure, and you said it's next to impossible to recover it. Does that mean you're trying?
There is not a mechanism that I've been made aware of for the state to redistribute to hospitals of any overpayments that were collected, and that is generally that situation does not surprise me because South Carolina was the same way. So to date, I'm not aware of a mechanism that will allow the redistribution of any overpayments.
Okay, and I think I understand that there's a step that I'm probably missing, but if we had that mechanism, then those hospitals that were overpaid potentially could provide funds to those hospitals,
Yes.
such as ours, that were underpaid.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And it's a very complex formula because the ceilings all have moved since the initial ceiling of allowable cost was.
What does happen to those overpayments once they're identified?
My understanding is the Department of Health will recoup those overpayments.
Okay. And the feds basically let them just sit on that money, use it however they want?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on to the next item on the agenda there, discussion regarding Gila National Forest and forest-related topics. Beth and Marcus.
Thank you. So, we have a handout. Am I allowed to distribute it?
Depends.
It's top secret.
What's it say?
After reading the details, we're going to wow you guys with low tech our presentation. So the last time, Mr. Chairman and Commission, thanks for letting us come today. The last time I came, I offered, I'm Beth Eiley, Marcus Cornwell, and Michelle, you need to come out from behind the flip chart. Michelle's our, she started last fall. She's our support services specialist for the Silver City Ranger District. So it's business administration functions at the district, and sometimes you see her at the front desk. So anyway, Michelle does a plethora and a variety of our, it's a software job as well as a human resources job. So I just wanted her to come today and get introduced and see how a business meeting of the commission runs. So before I give the floor to Marcus, when I came the last time, one of the, we kind of went through the report of what's going on, and it was, line items and a bunch of bullets on Forest Service activities. And so the thing that I asked you guys is if you wanted to do a little bit deeper dive into any specific topics, and the answer was yes. I specifically remember Mr. Billings saying that, yes, that you get lots of presentations with a lot of download, but I wanted this to be a little more of a conversation about two topics today. One of them is vegetation management, and the other one is trails. So I asked Marcus to put together the overview of the program, where we are with that, but not diving in super deep into projects, and then to visit a little bit about priorities. What do we think? And I'm really glad you're here today, Randy. We've had some of these conversations. But from the perspective of the countywide look, and we're here to take feedback and listen to also to what your interests are. So anyway, so I asked Marcus to give an overview of what we had gotten done this past year up to this point, and what we're planning for this year, point to places on the map, and then kind of discuss what does that mean for our projects and programs and what the county might be thinking. We need to be aligned. That's my main thought here on what is the important thing to do. So anyway, so Marcus, if you want to go ahead and just give an overview.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, County officials, thank you for letting me come today. I'm the detailed fire management officer, so normally I am the superintendent of the hotshot crew. I've been on a hotshot crew for about 20 years, suppressing wildfires, helping with RX across the country. So it's fun to be on the planning side, you know, because often I'm tasked to help Randy with mutual aid here in the county, with the state. So, you know, really thinking about our veg treatments and how it can not only help the firefighters respond safely, but also help our landowners, you know, and also help the land we're tasked to protect. So if you see in the handout, you know, just a few of the things that we got accomplished this year. So last fall, if I take you back real quick, remember it was kind of a wet fall, so we didn't really have the opportunity to treat up in our pine in the higher country as much. Generally up here, we have to wait for fall due to Mexican spotted owl habitat that limits our actions during breeding season. So that means we can only generally do prescribed fire up around Signal Peak area, you know, north of town here from about September to March. So it's fairly wet. We didn't get a whole lot done in there due to those storms. You know, what we did get done was the Cameron Creek RX, which was about 950 acres. Some of you guys may have seen the smoke, and you can still see the effects and the scar. And we got that done in late May, early June, and I think the effects really turned out well in that field type, what we got done in this watershed down here. We did a little bit of mechanical treatment. We've got a partnership with New Mexico Game and Fish, where we do about 100 acres a year here around Georgetown. And we might start burning some of those blocks as well, some of the slash we've accumulated. So we're chunking away at that. And then we've done a little bit of snagging, you know, eliminating some hazard trees and brushing on some of our roads. So if you look at what we have coming up for this next year, you know, one of our main priorities is the jaybird burn. And so jaybird is essentially right in this block right here. It has New Mexico Game and Fish dollars tied to it. It's about 2,500 acres. It'll treat ponderosa pine, some of the headwaters of Sapio, some of the feeder streams that feed into the members as well. So, you know, it's a watershed, protecting the watershed, treating some of the acres in there. So really, you know, briefly to touch on why this is such an important area for us is it has about 2,500 acres of mixed conifer in this stand. So if I take you back before the Signal Fire, before the Silver Fire, we had about 2 to 3 times that many. So we're at about 1/3 acres of what we have left of the high altitude mixed conifer. That's when you start getting that transition right from the ponderosa into the fir, white fir, that kind of thing.
Do you mean in the entire forest?
What's that? No, for District 7, for Silver City.
For the Silver City District?
Yeah, but I mean, even if I took you, I don't have the numbers for the entire forest, but we all know that whitewater baldy took out a fairly good chunk around Bear Wallow and those districts as well. So it's definitely a landscape at risk just because our mixed conifer, in general, if it doesn't see return intervals, the majority of ours needs to see a return interval about every 10 years. And a lot of it hasn't seen that. Accumulation of dead and down, all of that kind of thing. We get a dry year, start in the wrong place, high severity fire occurs, you know, like the Signal Fire, the Silver Fire, that kind of thing. So this is an area that's pretty important to us. So the jaybird, hoping to get this done in the fall. Like I said, 2,500 acres. Right when you make that turn, when you're heading to Lake Roberts, right before you come out in the flats, it's going to be right there on the right. So from Meadow Creek down to where you hit that straightaway as you're heading to Lake Roberts.
And when do you anticipate doing that?
From October to December, whenever we get the weather window. That's our
I'll be out there late September, so good.
Okay. Some hunting?
No, backpacking with our students.
Okay, great. While I'm touching on this landscape, so if you look at some of our mechanical treatment, and I think, Commissioner, you have some land here at Little Cherry.
That's also true.
We're going to start treating about 12 to 15 acres here around this, and I think you might have gotten a letter from Ranger Eiley here about our proposed treatment on some of
I
that.
anticipate it any day.
So we would love to start treating this and Lockney, Little Cherry Ranch and Lockney, and that is so eventually we can put some fire in this landscape that hasn't seen fire on the south side of Signal Peak. Protect more of that mixed conifer, protect more of the Mexican spotted owl habitat. Kind of got the headwaters of the Twin Sisters, Cameron Creek. We've also got the Upper Bear Creek watershed. So this is a pretty important area that we would need, I would love to see fire in the next 5 years. That whole landscape around those places and protect the private animals involved in it.
Mr. Sheriff, this is somewhat of personal interest, obviously, and I hope you'll forgive me for asking, but my good friend does the Signal Peak Lookout work, and he mentioned there was in fact a fire there, and y'all decided to put it out because it was too close, I guess, to our property. That must have been a tough decision. You and we want to see fire there. Can you explain why you decided to put it out?
So I think, that was a decision that Beth and I made together, and part of it's the timing. So where it was at was right here on the Twin Sisters Trail. Kind of a tough place to get in logistically that time of year. We haven't done any of these treatments around Little Cherry and Lockney. So, there's quite a few factors in there. I think we want to introduce fire in here on our terms for the most part. So I think once we get some treatment around Little Cherry, around Lockney, and really start getting a plan in place, I think we'll be a lot more comfortable, hopefully, managing fire there in the future. So it's good we brought that up. So right now, we've got a smoke report here on the other side of the Lockney Road, right here above Alley Canyon. And that is a place I'm hoping, I wouldn't mind seeing it kind of survive the rain and be a place we can introduce some fire back on the landscape there. Low severity, burning primarily the dead and down on the ground. Our fuel moistures are coming up. Even though it's been a subpar monsoon, I think it's a good time of year to have some low intensity fire on the landscape. So we'll see. The engine crew is heading out there now to take a look at that and see what the potential was for that to hopefully treat some land out. It's just off the map, but in the spring we're planning on burning East Sawmill, which is right here below the subdivision. That's about 2,500 acres. That also has New Mexico Game and Fish. We've had some activity slash in there, some fuel wood, and so that's in the burrows. And then if you look at on the table, bar 6 is kind of right next to it. If you've been out there recently and seen the slash we've done in the last 10 years, that's some of that area we're hoping to treat. And a lot of that's, wildlife improvement, watershed improvement, and also just getting rid of the activity fuels we've put on the ground and the public's put on the ground. And that's primarily it. We're going to continue with the Georgetown thinning. That's on there. We might revisit some of the other Cameron burns. This first one we did, we weren't super happy with the effects we got off the first one that's right by the admin site. So either this spring or the upcoming springs, maybe get another treatment in there and really, the goals in these brush models, right, is to knock some of that brush back. Open some of those areas back up, treat for wildlife, because if we get a high severity event in there, we don't want all of this kind of cover burning off all at once, right? We want to do it under our own terms. So that's an area we're looking to revisit. And part of this whole project, we're, during my detail, I'm working on fuel strategy. So what are our priorities? And I think it's going to dovetail well with Randy and the county revisiting the CWPP. We'll be definitely involved with that. And I think, Beth is asking you guys, what are the priorities for the county? The other place of mechanical to note is around Wagon Wheel, around the monastery. So we're waiting on a silviculture's prescription. We would like to start treating in there in the next year. And that would be about 150 acres of cut and pile burn around the monastery. And I think that would dovetail nicely with what work they've done around there, because it looks really good, what the monks have accomplished. And so starting to really identify some of these woody areas, what are the highest priorities? How do we prioritize them with our limited resources, just like you guys have? So that's something we're visiting right now. I think that might be all I have. Do you guys have any questions for me in particular with veg treatments or fire in general?
Any questions?
Yeah, I guess it's pretty off, but on your mechanical treatment, you're talking about contractors, I guess? Or do you
No.
do that yourself?
So the Georgetown thing in general, we do ourselves. They call it force account, so that's our guys doing it. Wagon wheel, we'd love to get a contract put forward. You know, the Forest Service is in some transition right now with how we accomplish contracts. So we're looking for partners, you know, with the state, potentially maybe BLM. It might happen with Forest Service. So how we might contract that and find the funding, we're definitely is in the talks. So the wagon wheel would be a great one to contract. It's just finding the funds and the resources to administer those contracts is a challenge right now in the Forest Service, I'll be honest.
So you're not that far along?
Not that far along with the contracting process, no. It's not like going out for bid next week or anything like that.
Thanks.
Any other question? Thank you.
Okay.
So one thing I'd like to offer is that we are proposing to go back out to the Cameron Creek project, which is pretty accessible, and that if people want to come and see the after effects in the fairly near term after a prescribed burn, if there's an interest, we can go ahead and send out the invite. You know, we're able to go behind one of our gates to go do kind of do a show me trip on the effects of that. And
Does that invitation extend to students?
you know, it could. I think we got to make sure we don't, you know, create a carnival out there. It might take a couple of trips. So if we want to, we actually had a student educational project that we were going to do out on the burn area, and the road got all muddy, so we could take the bus in. So anyway, so yes.
Okay, contact me.
Okay. So we'll let you know. The other thing is part of doing some of this work, we're also creating fuel wood opportunities for the community. It's a double-edged benefit to us. Fuel wood or firewood is a target accomplishment for the forest, and so we are always encouraging people to get that firewood permit because that's how we check the box. For the Gila forest, firewood cutting is about a third of our meeting of our timber target. So that's very important to us. And then the other parts that we want to kind of introduce the concept is of on watershed stability and vegetation treatments. I think what we're seeing more and more of is less pure vegetation treatment for vegetation treatment's sake and seeing resources to that. People want to treat watersheds. So I just think we haven't messaged that well enough on how vegetation work is about managing the watershed so they don't all come unraveled all at once. You know, the thing I think about is the big ditch went out once. We don't want to see that again. So we may be starting to take a look at the watershed area here in the near future as well because we want to see that. So any other questions about veg? And my conversation on trail stuff is fairly short. Is that anything else on vegetation? Field trip coming up. We will let you know. On the trails coordination and planning, we absolutely welcome the county taking. I think it's kind of a leap of faith in supporting Trails Master Planning, and Misha was telling us, you know, you're working on getting a contractor on board to help with that. But it has, here's what I see is there's been like a crescendo of interest in trails. And it's been over about the last 5 years. Now there's organized trails groups who want to adopt sections of trails. There's many more different kinds of users coming. And for the forest to be in sync with what is going on in the valley to make those connectors. You know, trailheads are an issue. The state of our facilities are an issue. And for the forest infrastructure to get to the next level, having a broader look that's supported between the city, the county, the other land ownerships, and the Forest Service, we're going to have more success in getting funds to get our facilities up to speed. I don't see recreation as being incompatible with the other things going on in this county and in a lot of parts of the country. People move where they go because it has a quality of life. And Silver City has an outstanding setting for being able to offer quality of life as well as decent employment. So I see that as something that we, the forest, needs to be engaged as a priority for us. And Silver City is kind of the hub for the Gila Forest on this stuff, but not entirely. So for us, that's one of the messages as I wanted to give you, is we're starting to look at, you know, our own kinks in the system where it's like, yeah, we got a perfectly good trail, but we need a right-of-way. We have a perfectly good trail, but there's nowhere to park. Heard from the backcountry horsemen, there's not very many places for you to get a horse trailer off the road. And it's dangerous putting a horse on the highway. So those folks, you know, there's those folks. We've been working in the boroughs and went out in the field with a couple of folks from the Burro Mountain Homestead to put carcinite posts in the ground to explain the UTV system out there. And so that's what goes along with this master planning is the forest made its transportation decision a handful of years ago. Right, wrong, and different. We are still in the first generation of implementing our travel plan. That travel plan has a lot of trails in it. And so for us to go to the next generation of good maps that are user-friendly, signing that is user-friendly, I think we all carry the same interest in trying to move trails into the next generation. But we see, you know, we are welcoming seeing the vision for how we connect, and for us to be able to respond to new things, we have to put it in our management queue and give it the upload and compete with other projects. So for us, that's why I'm very conscious of new proposals coming in, because they have to compete with everybody else's. And so I applaud the county for taking that step, and we're looking forward to the development of the planning effort and working with the partners. It's a good thing. So that's a good thing for this valley, this county. Anybody have any questions about anything else or trails or? Okay. All right.
No. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for letting us have some time on this agenda. You know, the regular meetings they're kind of formal. You can't point to a map and talk about fires necessarily in those settings. So I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to do that.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Moving on to next item, presentation regarding Energy Summit Conference. Commissioner Brown, it's all yours. All right.
All right, looks like it's all set up. So, county paid for me to go to the Energy Summit in Albuquerque 3 weeks ago now. This was sponsored by Senator Martin Heinrich and Mayor Tim Keller, and there were 8 workshops. I don't know how many people, but I'd estimate 150. And the whole thing turned out to be focused on local governments. It was actually an excellent conference. There were quite a lot of municipality and county representatives, and really the whole focus was to help us think about ways in which we could address clean energy. I'm sorry that Commissioner Salas can't be here. He's expressed interest in this as well. I went with a particular interest in learning more about property-assessed clean energy. This is a project I'd heard about probably 10 years ago, and then nothing seemed to happen with it. So I did learn a lot about it, and I continue to learn a lot about it. And I wanted to share some of that with you. I think we'll be hearing about this. This is nothing that's going to be actionable anytime soon. But I wanted to start talking about it so you'll know what it is when we refer to it later. And I'm supposed to hit the arrow. There we go. All right. So hopefully you can read that. And you do have copies on your computer, I believe. We can get you a copy of the PowerPoint. What is PACE? Again, stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy. And these are county programs. Their municipalities have an involvement, but they're county programs. They are authorized by the state since 2009. They make it possible for small businesses and lower income property owners to install solar panels or to improve their energy efficiency, depending on the program they're using. PACE provides upfront financing for the energy project that is repaid through a special assessment on the property collected by the county treasurer, collected together with other property taxes. So it's addressing the fact that upper income folks can get loans, right, to put in solar panels or whatever their improvements are going to be that will then pay back the loans through savings. But people without a lot of capital at hand can't do it, right? People can't walk into a bank and say, I need $20,000 to do this project. They can't take advantage of this technology right now. And PACE helps them do that. The financing of PACE is tied to the property. And this is a particularly interesting aspect of it. It transfers when the property is sold. So you don't need to refinance like you would with a home equity loan. If you took out a home equity loan to put on solar panels and then you wanted to sell your house 5 years later, you'd have to refinance, whoever bought it would have to refinance that loan because that loan doesn't go with the property, it goes with the owner. This goes with the property. It's assessed, property assessed. And so if you saw the next owner of that property is now responsible for paying back. Does that make sense?
Right. Good question. So
yeah,
he's looking at paying back the balance that is left, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That's exactly right. Yeah, they don't have to pay back what's already been paid back.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me make sure I understand. So a property owner decides he wants to do some solar or energy efficiency. He goes to this program, gets the loan, and then pays it back to the treasurer?
That's correct, through property taxes. So it appears on that owner's bill as a separate assessment.
Okay, so this is an individual thing, though this isn't a group.
Correct.
Okay.
We've been hearing a lot about community solar, which hasn't passed yet. This is not that.
Okay.
Yeah, this is an individual thing.
Okay.
But it's a county program that enables this to happen.
Commissioner?
Yeah.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, so you say it's a county program. There has to be this money up front, correct?
Correct.
Where does the money up front come from?
So you want to hang on? I think I'll get to the fact that there are different answers to that question. Yeah, it's a pretty short presentation, and I really appreciate the questions as we go. But that one we're going to address in a moment. So to qualify for PACE, and now let me introduce two new terms, right? There's residential PACE and there's commercial PACE. And the folks at the conference kept calling it R-PACE and C-PACE. So R-PACE, which is residential, a homeowner must demonstrate that their increased property tax payments will be less than their savings and energy bills. So you don't even qualify if you can't prove you will be cash flow positive as a result of the project. And obviously this makes the risk of lending the money much lower because the person's currently making their utility bills, right? That they're paying those. When those go down by more than their property taxes go up, they clearly have the capacity to make those payments. Commercial property owners can participate in C-PACE. Albuquerque has a C-PACE program. Bernalillo County adopted a county ordinance that allowed municipalities to offer C-PACE. And as I note here, that appears to be the only active PACE programs in New Mexico right now. And one item I wanted to make sure to emphasize, the county is never liable for any debt under PACE. Even though it's a county program, this is an individual financing deal with property owners, either commercial or residential property owners. Never affects the county's balance statements. All right, well, why do we care? This is my pitch for why I think we should care. We talk a lot about base jobs in an economy, right? Jobs that create value rather than just reselling somebody else's value. To me, keeping money in the county is every bit as valuable as generating new money in the county. So right now, utility bills are going out of county for the most part, right? Some comes back in terms of employment for our linemen, but most of it's going out. It's going out to P&M, it's going out to their suppliers of fuel. If we can generate power here and replace that, we're keeping more money here that will circulate here and add to our economy. Our residents should be important to us, and they'll save a little bit in the short run, right? Because they come out cash positive if they qualify at all. And they'll save a lot more in the long run, because in 15 to 20 years, they can be either independent or nearly independent from utility bills. Local solar installers will be able to create jobs, generate gross receipts taxes, and develop their skills in this growing field. And Grant County will be doing its part to combat global warming, or at least be doing part of its part. There's a lot to be done. But I think it's time we start. Got a picture there. This is not a local job. This guy's from Las Cruces, actually. Semi-local. But it is a local installation. These are the solar panels that were installed in the senior center in Santa Clara. And, of course, the devil's in the details. Bernalillo County, I mentioned earlier, the city of Albuquerque, Santa Fe County, and Sunland Park have all adopted PACE ordinances. None of them has actually yet resulted in a real project. Santa Fe County adopted its in 2010, Sunland Park just last year in 2018, and they're essentially dormant. They're on paper, but nothing's happening. Now, Bernalillo County and the city of Albuquerque, I mentioned, have an actual CPACE program, but no projects have come out yet. It's so recent that they're working on getting the financing set up right now, but they are moving forward. One of the things that I learned helped me understand why I was getting so many mixed signals about how PACE programs work. There are at least 3 different sets of state statutes that authorize local governments to pass these ordinances. In 2009, SB 647 allowed counties to create solar energy assessment districts. So these are really interesting assessment districts. Normally, an assessment district is defined geographically, right? If you live within it, your property gets an additional assessment, and that money can be used for an improvement, or it could be a ditch improvement if you're an irrigation district. It can be roads and sidewalks, buildings if it's an improvement urban district. In this case, there's a geographical definition, which is essentially Grant County, but not everybody within it's a member of the district. Residential property owners can opt in. So you can have, one person in a 10-block area is a member of this assessment district. Pretty interesting concept. That's how their assessments are made under what's called the Senate version of PACE. So the same year, the House passed and the governor signed a different version, HB 572. Obviously, the Senate passed it as well, that authorized a different method that does not require assessment districts. This is done somehow on an individual basis. So I, as a property owner, can come to the county, fill out my paperwork, go to a bank, say, look, the county is allowing me to put this assessment on my house. The bank finances the project, but it finances it knowing it's going to get repaid through property tax assessments. As you can imagine, this is complicated. And for that reason, nothing has happened with the House version of PACE. They're still working on regulations related to it. So I hope to be kept up to date on those. I'm now a member of a statewide working group that's looking at how PACE can work. I sat next to the deputy county manager for Las Cruces. He is much more excited about the House version than the Senate version. He's had Sunland Park that's within his county pass an ordinance authorizing this stuff. He doesn't know how it's going to work, that at some point, presumably, if they get a project off the ground, they're going to come to the county assessor and say, please put this assessment on my tax bill. They're going to come to the county treasurer and say, please collect this assessment and then give it to the district for use in this project. But it was a municipally authorized ordinance that doesn't go with the county ordinance. So it's not clear how that interface is going to happen. My point, of course, is that the devil's in the details, and a lot of these details are still being worked out. And the third version that I mentioned, just passed this last session, HB 440, allows counties to create solar energy assessment districts that are different from the Senate version from 2009 in some way that I don't understand yet. But this one is focused on commercial properties. Commercial properties have a huge advantage over residential properties, and that is that their mortgages on commercial properties are not resold to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, right? These huge national mortgage buyers that bundle mortgages, divide them up just like you heard about in the crash of 2008, and resell them. Those institutions have opposed PACE. Those institutions are concerned that if a homeowner goes into default, because PACE is backed by property tax assessments, the property tax debt is going to get paid off before the mortgage. So they're concerned that the security of their mortgage goes down if a property owner uses PACE. And they've opposed residential PACE for that reason, those two agencies. Now, I think it's unreasonable that they're doing that because the only piece that comes before their mortgage is any missed payments on property assessments, not the total amount due of the project. So they're really talking about a pretty small amount, a pretty small encumbrance on their collateral, which is the mortgage. That's enough to have convinced the VA and the FHC, right, the Farm Home Corporation. I can't remember what FHC stands for. Those are two players in the mortgage industry that have accepted PACE, but Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae have not. Commercial properties don't deal with those agencies, so they're good to go on HB 440, and that's what Albuquerque is pursuing right now. All right, that was probably the worst slide. Any questions on that one? Okay, I'll move on. Just a mention of, it's not just details, it's also politics. So in 2009, I mentioned that this is when those two bills passed, the Senate and the House versions, and there was a flurry of activity at the state level. The Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources Department sent out speakers to different counties. I got some of their PowerPoints. They teamed up with NMAC to produce this manual. So there's a how-to for how to establish these renewable energy financing districts under the Senate version of PACE. But when we changed administrations, that activity died off. And that's part of why we haven't heard anything. There's been no support from the state until the Lujan Grisham administration has taken over from the Martinez administration. So once more, state officials are starting to push this. I also sat at a table with a guy from Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources Department whose job it is to start pushing these projects. He's a member of this working group. And we're going to be looking at the different approaches that exist, the House versus the Senate version, commercial versus residential. We're going to be looking at what statutory and regulatory roadblocks there are, and I believe we'll be able to make something happen in the next few years. Again, that's why it's not an immediate thing. I'm just bringing it to your attention for the future. And of course, there's still a lot of questions left. We've got a big issue for residential, of course, is the Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae issue I brought up. Here's your county manager's question. How do you do the financing? Is private financing or public bond financing the best way to go? Albuquerque is doing public bond financing. Actually, they might be doing a mix of the two, which is also possible. You can establish a county bond fund that will pay for the initial financing of these projects, and then that gets repaid from the property tax assessments. Or you can go with a private financing through a bank that says, yes, this project's a good credit risk, it's got a good payback, we'll go ahead and finance it, and they get paid back from the property assessments. So that's, to me, that's an unresolved question. Which will work best? And the answer could be different in different locations, right? We might have bankers in this community who really support this project, or this idea of developing solar generation capacity in Grant County, keeping the money circulating here, and they want to participate and they see a profit in it. Other places might find that they don't have that and they need to jumpstart the project with bond financing. Charlene, that doesn't look like it answered your question because your face is super quizzical.
It is, because I'm going back to your previous slide that says the county's never liable for any debt. But if we are taking out bonds or we're going after financing, how are we not liable for the debt? I'm not connecting the dots. Maybe I'm just a little slow this morning.
No, so I suspect it's not we who goes for that financing is the answer. I suspect it's the district, right? You create a separate entity that is an assessment district that has its own board, actually. The city of Albuquerque, there's a separate board that's responsible for this financing. And somehow they have the liability.
And the state...
Well, I could just say, I don't know.
I'll just process that for a while.
Okay. But I think that's how the county's insulated.
Interesting.
I think a major question for me is whether the local supply of electricians is large enough or not to take advantage of this program, because it's already hard to find an electrician. We just lost one small business, two women who were electric contractors putting solar panels on. They moved to the Bahamas. So this is an issue for the county as a whole. It's an issue for trades as a whole. We need to get our trades education moving as well.
And I think we've pretty much, all of us up here have expressed that. I mean, I understand certain programs going into the high school, which is a great start, don't take me wrong. But I think eventually we need to move it further and come up with solutions, because a lot of the programs that interest or are becoming part of Grant County, exactly your bullet, we don't have enough of those trade skills. So it's a good one.
I agree. And my last question there is, what will PNM's attitude be towards increasing homeowner electric power generation? And I've got to note their attitude has changed 180 degrees on solar, right? They're now coming down to WNM and promoting their solar direct program. The same woman who came down and spoke with Joe Shepard last week was at this conference, gave a rousing speech about how PNM is going towards renewables. That's different, however, than supporting individuals being independent from PNM. And so to me, that's still an open question. How are they going to react? They can get in the way, right? They can create fees for grid intertie systems that make it economically infeasible. They can delay installing new transformers that are needed to put solar panels on your home and support your grid intertie. They're an important player. It's an open question what their attitude is towards PACE. I think that's it for me. Any last questions?
Look, and maybe just, it's very informative, thank you. But here, I guess, on one of your slides there, it increased property tax payment. Will failure to pay, will that create a lien possibly?
Yes, absolutely would create a lien. Yep.
Okay.
And I'm glad you stopped at that, because then what happens? I don't know. Right? I think we all know that liens can sit there for years without being acted on.
Right.
I think it's different in this program. People were referring to less than a year of leeway before being able to act on the lien, and I don't know how that works yet. But otherwise, it's not much of an enforcement mechanism.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you. Mr. Burlington?
No, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bernadette, thanks for setting this up. I'm just going to put it on the end and then leave it for you to disassemble. Thanks.
I do have a question I'm thinking of as you're walking up. So, would this program, the PACE program, take advantage of current funding from the federal and state government, or is there new state funding available for this?
You're referring to tax credits for individual installations?
That's part of it, yeah. And then I think in the past, there's been several mechanisms, but.
Okay, I probably don't know about the other mechanisms, but I think the answer is yes for our PACE, and I don't know for CPACE.
Okay.
But for our PACE, there still are federal tax credits. The state tax credits expired,
Oh.
and they haven't been renewed yet. I think it surprised many of us that they weren't renewed last session.
Okay.
But the feds, I think, still 30% tax credit.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Thank you. Moving on to the next, was that it? Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I don't have any questions for myself.
I
You never know, you might.
I guess I've got so many.
Catch me late at night. I got plenty.
I think you created more questions in my mind than you answered, but that's good that this isn't coming next month.
Exactly.
One of my concerns is that, like the solar installation at my house, P&M customers ended up paying for that. And I'm very thankful to them for that, but they in their, and it's very...
Involuntarily.
It's very nice for me, and yes, it was involuntary on their part.
How did P&M, I had a solar installation, I don't think P&M paid for anything.
Well, because P&M is obligated to buy the power from us. So statutorily. So as our installations produce power, they buy it back. And it becomes, in my mind, it increases
Everybody else's.
everyone's bill.
But I think that amount has gone way down, right? Aren't we down to like a penny per kilowatt hour?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't know, yeah.
It's way down.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to the next item is review August 22nd, 2019 regular meeting agenda.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, first item on your agenda is a proclamation, consideration of proclamation declaring September 18th through the 22nd, 2019 as Grant County Fair Days. This is an annual proclamation the board does each year prior to the Grant County Fair. Moving down to financial reports, item C, consideration of August 15th, 2019 expenditure report. Randy, would you please go through the summary of that?
Yes, good morning. In your packet, you do have the expenditure report period ending August 15, 2019 for a total sum of $1,978,616.48. Of that is accounts payable total $1,529,757.46, and a total of 2 pay periods totaling $448,859.02. To highlight some of the expenses during this reporting period are a payment to the High Desert Humane Society for $16,500. This is for April through June quarter animal control services. Payment to Tyler Technologies for $33,100 for the 2019-2020 renewals for the Eagle Recorder in the clerk's office. A payment to Hidalgo Medical Services for $50,000 for the fiscal year 2020 senior program contribution. Wright Express Fleet Services, $25,400 for the fuel card purchase. Ascent Aviation, $19,323, a jet fuel purchase. Summit Food Service, $21,900 for the June 2019 meals and medical snacks. Caterpillar Financial Services, $11,500 for the August 2019 lease for the road department equipment. VitaCore Health Strategies, $54,900 for the August 2019 medical management services at the detention center. Ascent Aviation, $19,200 jet fuel purchase. Infinity Fire Communications LLC, $10,300 for new radios for the Fort Wayne Volunteer Fire Department. Kubel Group LLC, $54,100 security electronics upgrade at the detention center. Sakalo Construction, $46,000 progress billing on the Station 2 addition for Whiskey Creek Volunteer Fire Department, and Southwest Concrete and Paving, $176,662. This is a progress billing on Rosedale Road Colonias project. Any questions?
Do you have any questions, Commissioner?
No.
No. Thank you.
Thanks, Randy.
Thank you, Randy. Moving on to agreements. Item D, consideration of agreement A1936, legal services contract with Holt Martinez PC. This was, I believe Randy emailed this to you for feedback. He heard back from a few of you. Any discussion? Questions that you might have for Randy that he could answer now?
There were a bunch of questions last meeting about ability to access the services, stuff like that. That all was answered to your satisfaction?
Well, I guess part of that's going to be as in one of those as we go along type things, if it's really working out for us. But what I would, and I haven't had a chance to talk to the county manager, but what I would really like to do is get a quarterly report from you as far as what the expenses have been during this period, being that, you know, our budget is our budget. So I'd like to see, and even if it has to be placed on the agenda or under your report quarterly, what we are spending for having outside counsel. Other than that, I mean, to me, it's just going to be one of those, we're just going to have to evaluate it as we go.
I agree.
So would that be hard? It's going to be a little bit difficult to compare because we have both previously we have had both in-house and contracted services. Now you'll just have contracted services. Do you keep track of that under the category of legal services usually?
So, yes, the expenditures for outside counsel were out of a specific line item. So that's easy to go back and look to see what we paid for outside contract attorney services.
So hopefully a lot of the savings will be in moving some of that to the new contractor.
Possibly. Okay. Any other questions or concerns? No? Okay. Item E, consideration of agreement number A1937, the 2019 Emergency Management Performance Grant, known as EMPG. And this is a, correct me if I'm wrong, Gilbert, 50-50 match. This pays for 50% of Gilbert Helton, who is our emergency manager's salary and benefits. So we receive $30,145 from the state. This is through Department of Homeland Security. And we match it with half of his salary, so it's an in-kind match. So this is something that we apply for each year. Did I miss anything important on that? No? Any questions? Item F, consideration of agreement A1938, New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration Intergovernmental Grant Agreement. So this is a grant agreement with DFA. The legislature in this last session, or the governor, set aside some funding to assist with the Census 2020 count. So Grant County will be receiving $30,569 through this grant agreement to assist with costs to educate the public and to hopefully have a very successful census count for 2020. Anything you want to add to that?
Just if there's some questions, I can give more details.
Do we have plans on what the most effective way to, I know that they put a board together and ideas to be effective, because this is very important to all of us.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. The Complete Count Committee has been established. That was one of the first things that has to be done in order to apply for this grant. The Complete Count Committee has done a preliminary budget, which is pretty broad, which is in this grant agreement, because we have to supply that. And we want it broad for for various reasons, for reporting purposes. But the committee itself will continue to whittle that down. We've already reached out to try to get some cost estimates for different outreach efforts. We all recognize how important it is. I mean, just one of the highlights in the letter that was sent to us is that we lose approximately $3,700 in federal benefits each year for every person that's not counted. So just a 1% undercount can cost $780 million over 10 years for the whole state. So we recognize that as a committee, and we will be working to spend this money in the best possible way to try to get the information out and get the public to go ahead and respond to the census.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? One other thing I would add too is the other importance of the proper count is our congressional delegation is based upon these counts too. So there's always the possibility that if our population is not counted properly, we could lose one of those seats. So it's not just money. Resolutions. Item G, consideration of resolution R1949, a resolution adopting an infrastructure capital improvement plan. So based upon conversation at the last commission meeting, I met with Misha, we went back and finessed the numbers a little bit, hopefully to reflect that conversation. The one other thing that has changed from the last meeting is the county has to include regional dispatch authority on our ICIP. We've been getting a different answer every time we ask from the state. Do they do their own? Yes, no. Now they're saying that no, they don't do their own because they're part of our audit, which I have my own opinion about. I'll keep it to myself. So what we've done is because this is we felt it rose to, being in the top 5 because of the importance of first responders, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the new CAD system we're trying to get financed. So that's why that got bumped up there. That's completely, like I've said before, that's completely your decision, but just wanted to make you aware that was one other change that we threw out there for you to discuss this time.
This is purchase and equipment base station radios? So
this is the actual radios for, remember there's the whole CAD part, and then she talked about the stuff that she's getting from the E911 funds, and then there's the radio portion that we have to replace, which is that motor
base station.
That was the title she provided, but that's the the Motorola, the big Motorola quote that we got. Yep. That would be for this. So.
Well, I'm comfortable with it being in the top 5. There was a generalized look of dismay among the responders at the Regional Dispatch Authority when we found out that it couldn't submit its own ICIP request.
Sorry, I shouldn't have stepped out. Where is the ICIP that you're looking at?
It is item G.
Okay, thanks. Item G, I see the resolution, but I don't...
It's attached to that. If you'll just click on that.
Just scroll down.
Scroll down.
Thank you.
We're discussing that right now for Central Dispatch.
For the top 3, does that properly reflect the discussion?
Did the county fleet replacement, did that end up absorbing the road department equipment?
Right.
Perfect. So that reflects that.
That was the fleet, the bus, and the road equipment we absorbed into one line.
And on Baton, I had a concern that we were going to be hard pressed to justify $500,000 when we don't have design yet, but you guys feel okay about that?
So what we did with that is, I might have a little bit of a concern, but if we include, as we changed the title to include drainage, so we do have to do a complete drainage study there as well. So that could we don't know, we're estimating what that full drainage study might cost. And jump in if I'm stepping.
So top three added to 1.2 million at this point. You all think that's reasonable based on recent history?
I think too, I mean, I keep reiterating our concern that we have to justify our application. We have to be able to justify what we're asking for, and I think that we can easily do that with these numbers. I think if we continue to inflate them just for the sake of asking for money, it's hard for us to justify whenever, we're the ones that get pulled in that room and asked, well, why are you doing this? If we don't have an answer, it's because you wanted to ask for a lot of money because you have a lot of money. Doesn't fly. It doesn't. It's not very well received.
In fact, the very next day, I happened to talk to President Shepard. I had just come out of that meeting where we were talking. I said, "Do you have the same access? Are we talking about the same pool?" And he said, "No, he's got 3 different pools. Only one of them overlaps with ours."
Right.
So I think the comparisons to what we're asking for and what they're asking for are not accurate.
And I think that was part of our discussion last time is why the drainage improvement was added on there for the justification and so forth and so on, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, on the $1.2 million, you do have justification in your mind for that, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Now the $750,000 figure could change pending any possible award for CDBG funding, but we won't know that until mid to late September.
The 2022 figure?
Yes.
Okay.
Looks to me like you've done a good job. Thanks.
That would be Nisha.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks.
I'm good with that too.
All right, thanks.
Item H, consideration of resolution R 1954, a resolution adopting infrastructure capital improvement plans for the Mimbres Valley and Gila Senior Centers. Nisha?
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. So we worked with HMS, who runs the senior centers for the county. Also, their facilities supervisor and Jason Lockett, our facilities and ground supervisor. The top 2 that you see on there is the top 1 for both facilities is the solar, and that is in direct response to the solar that was put on the Santa Clara Senior Center. The HMS saw a significant reduction in their utility cost due to that. So that one rose to their number 1 as what they wanted. And then, of course, the transit vehicles on both of them were on last year's ICIP, and the facility interior improvements for Mimbres was on last year's ICIP and remains on there. There was a facilities improvement that was on the Gila or Cliff Senior Center, but we got some funding, or we have some funding coming through GeoBond to take care of that, so that was removed. Okay, any questions?
I have a big one, just a softball, because I imagine you share this confusion. How come these guys can have separate ICIPs?
I was thinking that. I was like, okay.
That came about, was it 2 years ago, Charlene, when they used to be on our ICIP, and that one came directly from Santa Fe and has remained that they are to do their own ICIP. In fact, they even have a different date. Ours is due September 2nd. Theirs is due, I think, September 10th. But yeah, I don't know.
I have no idea. That's part of that opinion. I'm just gonna keep to myself. Who knows? Item I, consideration of resolution R 1955, specifying the salaries of elected officials and chief deputies in Grant County, New Mexico. So all we're doing with this resolution is we have a resolution which specifies what we set elected official salaries at, as well as the chief deputies. with the recent change in the election code with the 2 commissioner district numbers changing, the 1 and the 4. So all this is doing is changing that language in the resolution to reflect the proper commission districts, because they're named by district numbers because of how they fall in the election cycle. And with those numbers changing, we're just changing that language to reflect what the current law is. That's the only change.
Get out the spray paint.
Duct tape. Item J, consideration of resolution R 1956, a resolution of Grant County ratifying a certain agreement between Grant County and the Southwest New Mexico Council of Governments dated August 22nd, 2019, and authorizing the execution of the same by the proper official of Grant County. Long story short, this is our agreement to be a member of the COG. Our annual contribution is $7,221. This also appoints who our voting member and alternates are, which we do that at the beginning of every year. Unless you want to change it at this point, Misha is our voting member, with Commissioner Brown and Commissioner Edwards being the 2 alternates. So that's what this resolution enters into that agreement, specifying those things. Any questions, concerns? No. Moving on to bids and RFPs. Item K, award reject bid 2001 Tyrone Town Site ADA improvements. Randy, I'll just let you go through this.
Okay, in your packet, you do have a bid opening minutes. We did advertise for a construction of the Tyrone Town Site ADA improvements. We did receive 2 bids. One was from Deming Excavating Inc. for a total bid of $596,881.45. And the second one was from Southwest Concrete and Paving for $740,555.20. Our engineers, our contracted engineers have reviewed this, have deemed both to be responsive, but according to the bid solicitation, we do have to go with the lowest bidder. So it was their recommendation in the counties that we move forward and award to Deming Excavating Inc. for $596,881.45, and that does exclude gross receipts tax. And this is also tied to a colonias project.
Any questions? And this is the one we've talked about through the bond project, so we'll be using bond funds as the match for this, because typically we utilize county equipment and labor as part of our match. This will be a sole cash match because there's nothing that we can provide in-house for this particular type of work. So we're utilizing bond funds as our portion of the match, and it's 10%.
What was the cost again? The 5 what?
It was $596,881.45.
And how much was set aside for that, refresh my memory, or was projected for that to be?
Your award
A total of $740,555.20.
No, that's Southwest Concrete and Paving.
That's quite
No, they were Southwest Concrete and Paving came relatively close to what the engineers have projected as the, that was a good type
came to the penny.
Yeah, it was actually very close. So I think it's been $1,000 of what the engineers have projected.
So roughly 740.
740,000. Okay.
Have you done work with Deming Excavating before?
Yeah, we have
I
not.
don't think we have.
And so,
The schools are utilizing them.
yeah, I know the school did, so has anyone looked at those projects or talked to the school? Or they have?
We really don't have an option because we're required to go with the low bidder.
Okay.
So,
Well, surely there's some performance.
and there's
evaluation.
performance bonds included in these as well.
So how's their prior performance evaluated to know that they're a qualified bidder?
We have to go off of cost. You're bidding dollars. So you can't, because someone else had a bad experience or we have no experience, it's not a correct me if I'm wrong, it's not a qualification-based proposal, it's
Correct.
a bid. And so we're asking you to bid on this project, and it's about the dollars.
Yeah,
And
so
yes,
these
it's
are a
really
little bit
scary.
different from proposals. So proposals, we can ask for performance and we can ask
Thanks
for
for this
references.
explanation, yeah.
Bids, you just have to give us a dollar amount, and if you are considered responsive, meaning with everything that we've asked for in our bidding documents, if you are considered responsive, we by law have to go with the lowest bidder.
Okay, so that adds to my next question. I mean, I know that Southwest Concrete and Paving is notoriously pricey, so I understand that. So who holds the contractor to a performance standard? I mean, just explain that process so that we, if you would, for me.
So we do, so we hire, so part of the engineering cost is the construction management and oversight and the testing and those sort of things. So we hire the engineer to act on our behalf. However, it is up to us to make sure that that is properly enforced.
Okay.
It's no different than.
I guess I'm thinking of the job that the 14 million job that they just did over here on the bypass road, and then somebody messed up, depending on which story you read or who you hear from, and then they went back and ground some pavement off, and that sort of fixed the problem, kind of, but it's just, I just want to know what the process is that the county doesn't get into the same kind of thing, or how we avoid that as best we can. So thanks for that explanation, and hopefully it'll go well.
It's just the chance you take with any contractor, honestly.
Yeah, no, you're taking a chance with any contractor, right?
Any other questions or comments?
Glad we had the competition. It's a very large difference.
Next is the Grant County Health Care claims. There's 2 items, and Bernadette, do you want to give your report?
Okay, before you have the consideration of appeal of denied December 2018 claims. These claims, as I listed, were presented on a 2019 February sheet. They were delivered to the county managers in March to be presented during the March meeting. The claims we denied in May 16th. They were exceeding the 90-day. So they did send us an appeal letter stating, and I placed that on there, verbatim, patient personal insurance was billed instead of the county. So it was an oversight on their part. So they are actually appealing for the claims to be reconsidered for your approval. So I have 3 Gila Regional Medical Center claims in the amount of $18,034.20, 2 ambulance claims in the amount of $1,405.25 with a total of $19,439.45 to be considered.
So these were originally presented. We denied them because they exceeded the 90-day time frame. It took some considerable reminding that we needed an explanation as to why they could not bill us in the proper time frame. They said they billed personal insurance instead of the county, which in my mind, if you bill the personal insurance and they're incarcerated, their insurance should have paid to begin with. So I'm not really buying that. I'm still recommending denial. If it was anyone else, if it was a member of the public, we would deny under the same circumstances. We'd be getting several different answers. It's still my recommendation to deny. But that's up to you. But my recommendation has not changed. And I don't understand their explanation that they billed personal insurance instead of the county. If they had personal insurance to begin with, that should have been the payment mechanism and not the county health care. Because if you have insurance and you're incarcerated, if it's anything other than Medicaid, they don't lose their insurance. They lose their Medicaid, it's suspended. But if they have personal insurance, so I'm not sure if they're talking about personal insurance being Medicaid or personal insurance being Blue Cross Blue Shield or whatever they might have. And I've not yet been given that explanation, so.
Think we'll have one by Thursday?
No. Like, we can ask again, but but 90 days, I mean, you have 3 months to get us a bill. And we might have been able to determine whether or not there was another payment mechanism, but that was their response.
confused by the memo that I'm looking at that says the following appeal of denied 2018 claims are recommended for approval.
Right.
Are you just now telling us you're recommending them for denial?
Well, it's still on. I mean, we have to say that it's up for you to approve or disapprove. It's my opinion. Maybe it's a form memo, and so. But I'm just telling you, my personal opinion is that you deny them.
I'm telling you, I'm confused. So you might, in the future, if you're actually going to recommend denial, go ahead and write that. Not recommend that we turn down a memo that says approval. Okay. My inclination is to back you, but we'll decide this on Thursday.
Well, my natural inclination is just to say, can't we all get along and pay the bill? But I've got the same problem personally at home, and I'm not going to pay that bill. So I'll probably support the county manager. It's, when it times out, and then months go by after that, it's timed out. So.
Yeah.
So at least they were incarcerated, right? We've established that piece,
We did establish
right?
that piece, yes.
So, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're not going to get more information anyway, but do we know why they billed? I guess we don't, because we don't even know if they billed Medicaid personal insurance. Okay, never mind.
We've been having some discussion, and I know they're working diligently on changing their processes. That we are billed in a timely manner.
So I mean, for me, the biggest thing to look at this and approve it or disapprove it, I guess, would be did they bill the insurance?
So I'll call Richard myself directly and just ask, because they're not exactly being very professional with Bernadette, and I'm a little frustrated with that myself. But I'll ask him that question. And the other thing I might throw out there, they have a mechanism called uncompensated care that they can write this off on, or charitable care. Hospitals have that opportunity, and that also plays a part into how they report things and how their their safety net care pool payment comes back through is based on their amount of uncompensated care. So they have a mechanism to write this off rather than it hitting our indigent fund because of their lack of having a process in place to properly bill. It's not, to me, that should not be difficult for hospitals to figure out how to bill us within a 90-day time frame.
All right, so here's a next level consideration, I guess. I want them billing personal insurance when they can, right? I don't want us to have to verify that when they're billing us for indigent care, it's people who didn't have insurance. And so where I'm going is, if we deny this, is that going to encourage them to just bill us so they can do it quickly and not have to delve into the question of whether they have personal insurance that can be billed?
That's a possibility. Do we have a mechanism, Mike, of knowing if they have or if they carry insurance when we send them?
What happens is whenever our medical group, say most of these are going to the hospital, most of them come in with a pre-existing issue, and that's why these claims are here. And when they come in, at the time, our medical group does ask them, do you have personal insurance? Some of the times they'll tell us that they do. We try and verify it, our medical group tries to verify whether in fact they do have a valid insurance that's current. Being incarcerated, some of them have lapsed, and they think they still have the insurance, but because they've been incarcerated for an extended period of time, maybe some of the payments haven't been made. But we do check first and ask them if they do, and if they do, we then give that information to the hospital and tell them they needed to check into that. And I don't know as far as whether or not the hospital does that or not, but we do have a system where we ask if they do have a valid insurance before we set up any kind of appointments or scheduling for any kind of medical care.
Maybe I'm being too harsh, but.
Well,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
No, I was just going to pass the buck back to you and say you've got 2 days to think about it.
And I was just going to say that I agree with what Commissioner Brown said, and it'd be interesting as to how the billing's actually being done, if they do have insurance, if it is the easy way. But I guess by Thursday, we're not going to be able to know that, so we'll move on.
I'll call Richard today.
Thanks.
Any other questions or anything on this? Thank you.
Next item M.
Okay, in front of you on item N, it's consideration of July 2019 health claims in the amount of $45,199 even. It is, like I said, with the communication back and forth that we're working diligently on. All the claims submitted are July, except for one August. So that is where we're trying to get them to submit them as soon as possible.
Good.
So you have 10 Gila Regional Medical Center claims in the amount of $44,490. One ambulance claim of $709, with totaling the $45,199. Those have been verified that they were incarcerated.
So M is good, and we need to think about L.
And that concludes the agenda.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to unless anybody has any other questions on that. Moving on to the next item, Commissioner reports. Commissioner Billings, you have a report.
Nothing today.
Commissioner Brown.
Nada.
And I have nothing today. Thank you all.
Thank you. I move we adjourn.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.